Question 2 is related to a sentence in my book Principles of Liberty in Chapter 1, section Operational Definitions, and it includes the following statement. Apriorism was defined here in the sense of Aristotelian apriorism as shared by the Austrian school. Now the question is that one can't define a term by using the same term. That's right. And I admit, sometimes we try to resume complex issues so much that it becomes confusing. In order to clarify, in this sentence, I did not try to define apriorism, but to define, or perhaps better said, to delimit the kind of apriorism I adhere to. Certainly, this implies that there are different types of apriorism with different rationales. This sentence refers actually to the discussion in Chapter 3, section Purpose of the Study, and is based on Barry Smith in Defense of Extreme Fallibilism Apriorism, written in 1996. Barry Smith had developed a very instructive flowchart in which, through stochastic decisions, one can associate assumptions or ideas expressed related to apriorism to a specific school of thought. Again, I have to insist it is most useful to read my book first before going into detailed questions and different critical aspects. All the terms I work with are highly entangled and form part of a complete framework which only can be analyzed when setting all the parts together. Related to this question number 2, we deal with concepts of time, truth, identity, reality and objectivity, all relevant for the understanding of the phenomenon of personal identity and social constituency. You can find the whole scheme of Barry Smith in Appendix E of my book, where you will see that I amended it with a few points. Relevant for the question here is that at the end of the flow we arrive at point 8, where Barry Smith distinguishes Kantian apriorism from other types regarding the certainty of ontological a priori. For Kant, the a priori is imposed upon us and upon the world. As a different view, I name Aristotelianism and similars. A last criterion for Smith is then if this a priori might be false. There I mention Aquinas as one of the affirmative positions, whereas Plotinus would be negating the statement. The final conclusion for this school of thought through Aristotle and Plotinus states that certain pre-empirical synthetic, intrinsically plausible propositions thus require ontological correlates which are their truth makers. Hence, there are intelligible structures in the world which we could also call a priori structures. This is the final position I adopt in my research, but since this is a very specific and a rather outsider position, I felt the need to define it precisely and not simply speak of apriorism, but of a certain type of apriorism. While being quite defined and rather than an outsider due to the Plotinian metaphysics, what my position shares is the Aristotelian background as opposed to the Kantian line of thought in Apriorism. And roughly we can say that the Austrian schools and all scholars in Austrian school share this Aristotelian background, whereas in more concrete questions we may have our discrepancies.